We do from time to time, we ask our different departments to come and give their annual report. This is an opportunity for us to get both an overview of the work of our department and to share that with our community. All of our departments stay extremely busy, and that work oftentimes goes chiefly unnoticed among our community sometimes, not necessarily the work of our police department, but other departments. So this is always an opportunity that we welcome, both as council and as a community. And with that, then, I will turn it over to you, Chief.
Mayor Danner, members of council, Mr. Burgers, and fellow guests. I'm pleased this year to report the activities of the police department for 2011. It's going to be a little bit different this year in the way we present. I'll have members of staff that will present their areas of responsibility to you, each of them, to give you a sense of what each of them does and the talents that they possess. I have a very competent staff, and I think you'll see that when they give their presentations. Also, as a result of the retreat, you'd ask that in our reports, our annual reports, or in our monthly, I assume, that we point out some of the areas within our activities or strategies that reflect activities that move forward in terms of our strategic plan. I had already published my report when I was told this. However, I took the report and we trimmed it down a little bit because we'd be eating breakfast here if we went through the whole thing. But I trimmed down the report, and also what I've done is I've highlighted in yellow. It was red, but in highlighting yellow, when we went over the red, we couldn't distinguish it, differentiate what those things were in the report. So you'll see yellow boundaries or yellow highlighting and some of the things that we talked about, and those are things that contribute to areas of the strategic report. I haven't cited the particular areas, but if you have any questions later on, let me know. After the meeting, you'll get a copy of that full report, and then tomorrow we'll email you a copy of the presentation as is tonight, and that will have the highlighted areas for your information. First off, what I'd like to do is describe or show you a picture of the organization. The only thing I'm going to discuss here is the creation of the DPU, the Director Patrol Unit. And that was a decision I mentioned to council a few months ago, or back in June or July, that we made as a result of some of the strategic planning we've done to focus on problem areas within the city with a special unit. And it seems as today, and Sergeant Smith will go over this, have been very successful in what they've been doing in terms of focusing on the drug issues, which is what our major focus is. In 2011, the department made a decision to focus on these particular areas. The one thing we wanted to do is conduct a retreat for the department and focus on, we had a speaker come in and talk about leadership and qualities of leadership. And then we had another speaker from Rainbow Tech that explained to us how you perform strategic plan. As a result of that, we came back to the department. Each one of the division commanders devised their own strategic plan or goals and objectives for their units, and decided at that time too that we wanted to focus on drug activities, and also made the decision that we would eliminate the traffic unit and give that traffic responsibility to the patrol unit, the regular patrol units, and design a directed patrol unit. We continue to integrate the good, the great, and now the exceeding expectations management philosophies in the organization. We completed an OC storage facility during the year. That's that bunch that you see out there at the OC, and we share that. That's a shared resource between us and the Department of Public Works. We have a property room annex, which we're planning to build within the OC. It's a storage area we already have. What's happened, the state has passed some laws that require us to keep property and evidence longer than we have in the past. And even though we have a new area, larger area to keep the stored and keep and store evidence, we still need more room because we're going to have to keep a lot of property for years and years and years, and that we feel like that annex will accommodate that extra storage space. We completed an implementation of new reporting system, an in-car reporting, already in the cars. There's some, we're continuing to work on that because there's some hardware issues and a few software issues, but a lot of the officers are able to complete portions of the reports in the car and only have to spend a minimal amount of time in the office to complete the rest of the reports, or go to detention when they bring in a suspect and complete the reports there, which increases our efficiency in that area. We continue to emphasize programs in Sunnyside area and other identified areas where we've had problems in the past, and also had a couple of major events with Night Out and also the Peace Summit that we had in that area this year. Again, the major enforcement effort for us now is drugs, focusing on alcohol abuse, and prescription abuse, and illicit drugs. We're going to complete implementation of barcoding the property and evidence room. We've done most of that. The only thing left now is to put the RFID, the radio frequency identification, on each item. That way, when somebody enters or leaves with property that's barcoded, it's recorded automatically on the computer. It saves a lot of time, more efficient, more effective way. And also, with the system we have, we'll be able to conduct audits without physically going to every bin and packet to look at the stuff, to look at the evidence. And the adoption of the court community service program, Sergeant Richardson is in charge of that. We adopted that, and we've been working with that quite well over the past year. What I'd like to do now is to present Captain Van Seal, who will go over her responsibilities and professional standards.
As captain of the police department, I am second in command of the department. I also supervise and oversee the 4 lieutenants who are in the 4 divisions, and they're all going to be giving information to you tonight. In addition, the Office of Professional Standards falls under the captain's role. Within that, one of the things that I'm involved with is writing and procuring and writing grants and making sure that they're followed up correctly. I'm also involved with the general orders updates, the use of control monitoring, which I'm going to get into in just a minute, and internal investigations. Start with the grants. In 2011, the bulletproof vest grants came from 2 different areas. Part of it was from the state, which is the Municipal Association of South Carolina, provided $1,574, which was approximately half of the cost of 5 vests. And the BJA, which is a federal agency, also has a bulletproof vest grant, and they provided $7,061 to help us also offset the cost of bulletproof vests. The Phoenix Center, which is in Greenville, gives us a grant of $1,000 a year. This money is used for buy money for underage drinking, and Sergeant Smith will be getting a little bit into the success that we have had with that program. Of course, the largest grant that we have is the COPS grant, which paid the salaries and the benefits for 3 officers for 3 years. This last year, 2011, it was $138,000. We are in the last year of that grant. It technically expires at the end of June. However, we can get a 3-month extension to make sure that we do expend all of the money that they allotted to us. In addition to the grants, we have the 2011 Memorandum of Understanding with the Greenville School District. They provide $50,000 each for 3 of our SROs. We have 4. They provide $150,000 total to help support that program in our schools. A total for the grants for 2011 was $297,635. This is one of the ways, of course, that we're always looking for additional funding beyond the general fund, which was part of the strategic plan. This is a graph that shows our use of control techniques by types of control in 2011. In 2011, there were 33 incidents in which it was necessary to use control techniques to resolve the situation. A total of 49 officers were involved in these 33 incidents. 2011 was an unusual year in that twice officers arriving at a scene were met with gunfire. Both incidents involved barricaded suspects. In March, officers were summoned to a house in reference to a domestic disturbance. Immediately upon arrival, they were under fire from a lone gunman in the house. 3 members of our emergency response team were forced to return fire to suppress the gunfire from the house, while the other officers were able to get to safer locations and the emergency response team was able to set up for an entry. The gunman was removed from the house without injury to himself or to the responding officers. In August of 2011, officers were responding to a welfare check on a woman. When the first officer arrived, the woman stepped out on the porch with a handgun. The woman went back into the mobile home and proceeded to fire rounds through the walls of the mobile home. Once again, the emergency response team arrived. They were able to enter the home and take the woman into custody without injury, and while weapons were pointed at the home, no rounds were fired by the police at that time. So when you see on the chart the discharge of a firearm, there were 3 officers involved with 1 incident. The tasers were deployed 11 times. Another 3 times merely pointing the taser was sufficient to gain compliance, and OC spray was used 1 time. The majority of use of control techniques utilized only the hands and feet of the officers. A total of 26 of the 33 incidents, or 78%, did not escalate above using the hands or feet. And actually, out of over almost 2,400 arrests, only 33 times was it necessary to use a control technique to bring the situation under control. No officers were hurt in these encounters, and only 1 suspect was injured, resulting in 4 stitches to his chin. I'm going to leave that one up while I finish up here. As far as general orders are concerned, that is a continuous, ongoing project. The police department's general orders are, again, under continuous revision. The general orders must reflect changes in federal and state laws, as well as case law that comes from the state and the federal Supreme Court. The Municipal Association of South Carolina's Risk Management Services has adopted several high-risk policies written by Jack Ryan. Mr. Ryan is an attorney who specializes in liability reduction for police departments, and we have incorporated actually all of his policies into our general orders. In fact, we sent our use of control techniques policy to his organization for review and approval. And I'm pleased to say there were very, very minor changes that had to be made. Mostly, he's a lawyer. It was in language more than anything else. In 2011, we had 8 internal investigations. 4 were from complaints from the public, and 4 were initiated by the department for policy violations. 5 of the 8 were found to be sustained and appropriate actions were taken, and 3 were unsustained and the officers were cleared. In summary then, the Professional Standards Office is, its major focus is the reduction of liability by monitoring, by auditing, by making sure that any complaints are handled, by continuously making sure that our general orders meet all requirements, once again, of federal, state, and local areas. Now I'd like to introduce Lieutenant Chris Varner, who's going to talk about the Patrol Division.
Mayor and Council, my name is Chris Varner, and I'm over the Uniform Patrol Division, which consists of 4 shifts, which span 24 hours a day, and also the newly implemented Directed Patrol Unit. The reason for this slide is the city is divided. We've got 4 areas, and yearly what we do is we go back and do a study of all the calls for service to make sure the city is still divided up as needed, because we can always go back and make the areas smaller or bigger. As you can tell, some of the areas are quite large, but the calls for service in these particular areas are a little bit smaller. And we have the sergeants listed. Of course, Chris Forrester is a daytime sergeant, and Marcus Kelly is another daytime sergeant, and then Patrick Fortenberry is 1 night shift, and Mark Justice is the other night shift. We changed strategies a little bit. Last year we had them assigned to 1 area of the city. We ran into some problems where the sergeant would be off for a few days, and therefore he might not return the call. So we've got it back to where the supervisor, the sergeant or corporal is in charge of the entire city, any particular issues. And that way, that day sergeant, if something can be followed up at nighttime, just turns it over to the night shift sergeant that follows him instead of waiting sometimes an entire weekend or 4 days, 5 days till the sergeant comes back on duty. And this is the way things are divided up. When we're full staffed, each shift has a sergeant and a corporal and 5 officers. And later on, Sergeant Smith's going to get into the DPU, which is something that we decided to do. We got rid of the traffic unit, and traffic has always been close to my heart. I'm traffic safety, traffic enforcement. So we made sure that we moved the shifts around where each shift has a certified accident reconstructionist whose focus is on traffic. That way, if there's an issue, they also can study where your high collision areas are, so they can focus during their day shift or night shift these particular areas, so the traffic issues are still being covered. And we also have taken, when we need to do traffic surveys, we still work on that along with Sergeant Richardson's group and make sure we get out that, and that we can work with the city engineer if he needs a traffic study done somewhere for some issues that he might think are coming or some issues that have been brought to his attention. This is a comparison from 2010 to 2011. We were up in every area except, which is fine with me, with miles traveled. The less miles traveled, that's a good thing, and it could be because we were busy doing other things. And if you'll notice, there's a big upswing in field interview and warning citations. And part of this is when we decided to change our focus to drug activity. This way you're getting out with more people. You see somebody walking down the street in the middle of the night, you get out with them, get their information. They might not be doing anything wrong, but then day shift comes up and there's a burglary in the area. But at least you've got a list of people you can go back and say, okay, they were close to this area. Maybe we can follow up with them and see what's going on. Maybe they saw something that they didn't think about at the time, but it's something that can help us out. And warning citations were up. 2010 was really the first year we started using those, and they have progressed as far, instead of writing citations to certain people, and it's also another avenue to get out with certain people. Traffic stops, and you can just give them a warning for broken tail light, expired tag, or whatnot, as opposed to issuing citations. One of the things that the night shift decided, or got to thinking about, is they were looking over reports, and Lieutenant Press is going to get into the crime density mapping and that information. And when we have a ComStat meeting, you'd see a higher area of burglaries or auto break-ins. The night shift guys got to think, we see a lot of mopeds coming out of that area. We'll stop a moped, there's no registration, and it's not listed stolen or anything. Well, then the state has a new law where you have to register mopeds. So if there's not a state tag on the back of it, it's not a number tag, but it's just a state issue tag, that's probable cause to stop them. And we found that a lot of the mopeds were stolen. They would use them to do auto break-ins or do burglaries at night in abandoned houses, and then they would leave the mopeds nearby and either walk away or get in a car. And of course you can cut through yards and whatnot better on mopeds. So what we did, we decided to focus on that for a while, and that did decrease, and Eric will get into that later, that did decrease a lot of our auto break-ins, and people were less apt to go pick a moped out of somebody's yard and ride it around to commit different type of crimes. And another thing that was noticed was there was an uptick in auto break-ins that was in the Greer Mill area. So we've got uniform patrol guys that saturated the area for quite some time, and they ended up arresting a suspect, and there was a sharp decline in the Greer Mill area, for calls for service in general from even suspicious people, because they started leaving the area when we were in there saturating a little bit more, and the density of the crimes went down, which you'll see shortly. And this year we had 3 promotions. Y'all met them a few weeks ago. Pleased to announce we had 2 females that were promoted this time. It was Kara Blackwell and Brenda Veach. Kara came off of Jeff's team, and Brenda had been back on shift, and prior to that she was on the traffic team. And Chris Forrester was an acting sergeant for a while, and he was promoted in this last round of promotions. A few of the goals that we have for the Uniform Patrol Division and the DPU is involve patrol and DPU in problem-oriented policing projects with other teams and other city departments. We have a great working relationship with Parks and Rec, with Public Services, city engineer to get things done, quality of life type things. And it's a great working relationship. They'll call us with a problem, or we'll call them, and we'll get together and meet and discuss what can be done. And everybody bends over backwards to help everybody else. So that's something that we want to keep building on and expound on that even more this year. And as far as the problem-oriented policing goes, we want to reintroduce it to patrol. It's been some time since we've had the basic training of POP. So we're going to go back and reiterate it to the guys to make sure they understand the best practices and the best ways to do it. That way we can all be on the same page of music, and the projects can swap from shift to shift and officer to officer to make sure they're being followed up in the same way, in the same manner. And we're going to continue to emphasis on drugs, that are related to these incidents. We found that a lot of crimes are related to people that are hooked on drugs. They need the money, or they need whatever the property they're stealing to swap for drugs. So that's going to be our continued focus for this year. And we've got Jeff Smith coming up next. He is the sergeant over the DPU unit. Thank you.
I think I've met most of you, even in the audience. I am Jeff Smith. I'm the sergeant over Direct Patrol Unit. Direct Patrol Unit is basically a multifaceted unit with a couple of primary goals, which is to conduct criminal interdiction, conduct investigations, and we target or go out and arrest those individuals that are responsible for repeated criminal activity. Here recently we come up with a top 10, if you will, who are our regular people that we have to deal with on a continuous basis. We put that out to the community outreach team, to our vice units, and to the patrol teams. These are that 10% that are committing 90% of our problems. The Direct Patrol Unit, again, is headed by myself. I have 2 officers whose primary purpose is to provide a quick and targeted response to problem areas, situations, and persons. Well, you may see us, I know some of you have seen us in plain clothes or in our TAC vest or in this uniform. We do it all. The chiefs asked us before, what is our focus? And sometimes it's hard to come up with an answer for that, because our focus is whatever comes before us. Last week we were passing out flyers for a community meeting to help out the community outreach units. Next week we're going to be working on more meth labs. So it's just whatever comes our way, that's what we're going to be directed towards. Again, like I said, we provide saturations of certain areas of surveillance based upon certain crime trends. We come up with those crime trends, and Lieutenant Presley is going to get into that a little bit more with the maps, but we work real close with the person that does our crime analysis. She sends out a weekly bulletin, both the map and a list of crimes and which area those crimes are occurring in. We also oversee the special projects. A couple of those special projects are prostitution stings, underage alcohol compliance checks, our DUI or traffic enforcement saturations of certain areas, and public safety checkpoints. One thing that I enjoy doing personally, but one thing that I've met with Sergeant Richardson about, and I want to keep our guys focused on, is a lot of what we deal with since July have been kind of high-profile cases. We basically target the worst of the worst that's in the city. That's pretty much our purpose. However, I didn't want us to get away from speaking of POP problems. It's that broken window theory. I don't know if y'all have seen this. Having to ride by it, but it was an area too over in the Sunnyside area off of Hampton Road. This is the backside of Mr. Bingo. And I have to admit, I rode by it several times, looked at it, didn't think a whole lot about it, and then one day I'm like, we got to do something with that, because it starts off with a corner, and then eventually this is the entire backside, and one into the other of Mr. Bingo. And you know where I'm talking about. That's a fairly large building. Got with Sergeant Richardson, who was gracious enough to get us a couple of weekenders that's doing some community service work. Met with the owner of the business, told him what we wanted to do. He actually went and bought the paint for us. So at no cost to the city, we were able to go and paint over it. Now, I know it's not the best painting job, but I think you'll agree that it looks a whole lot better than what it did.
Sure.
And knock on wood, so far, there's not been any reoccurrence. So usually when we painted this a day or two, they come right back and hit it again. These are the two officers. Just a couple pictures of some of the things that we've seen, some currency and legal contraband. Top left is marijuana. Well, all of them are marijuana, but last couple of weeks it's been meth. So, a couple of miscellaneous projects that we worked on since the inception of DPU. We've had 2 undercover prostitution stings, and we work extremely close with our vice units. During those 2 stings, we had a total of 41 arrests for solicitation of prostitution. We've done a few alcohol compliance checks. During that time, 27 establishments were checked. 14 were found to be in non-compliance, which basically means they sold to our undercover operative. Not only do we go in and do the enforcement, but while we're there and writing the citation, we also offer them some education on how to train their people, basically. Check for IDs. Units conducted surveillance for several nights at City Park. This is due to malicious damage. Although we weren't able to establish enough probable cause to make a charge for malicious damage, we did, just through getting out, walking and talking, establish 2 potential suspects. And we had enough at that point to go ahead and place them on trespass notice. And all that does is just gets the wheel rolling. You may not get them for the malicious damage, but hopefully if they come back on property, we can at least lock them up for trespassing. That's about it, and this time I'd like to introduce Lieutenant Presley.
Thank you for having us. I'm Lieutenant Presley. I'm over the Criminal Investigations Division, and before I get started too far into that, I would like to say that I think that our creation of the Directed Patrol Unit has been one of the best things we've done in a long time. As you can see, they've been very successful, and they stay very busy. With that said, in criminal investigations, we have general detectives, we have our vice and narcotics detectives, our victim advocate is in CID, as is our crime analyst. Our makeup here in CID, we have one sergeant, Sergeant O'Shields. He handles the bulk of our financial crimes. Those are forgeries, credit card frauds, things of those nature. We've got a corporal, Chris Ayler, who is assigned to vice and narcotics. He also has a detective that's assigned directly to him, and that's Ginger Uplinger. We have 4 general detectives, and they are assigned specific crimes for the most part. Detective Wright handles crimes against person. Detective Brewer handles property crimes. Detective Bash handles crimes against person, and he also handles some of our financial crimes. And we have Detective Arterburn that handles property crimes. The reason that we have these detectives that are assigned to specific crimes are several reasons. One, obviously repetition builds experience and expertise. We can also begin to tailor our training specifically to those kind of things so that they're not spread out doing so many different things. And they also create very good contacts in agencies outside of Greer with detectives that work the same type of crimes. We don't assign, we have specific reasons why we assign cases to investigators, and we base them on certain solvability factors. And those factors, we have several, but a few of them are one, forensics processing. We want to know if the scene was processed by Greenville County Forensics. Property tracking and identification. Does the victim have serial numbers? Do they have other means to identify the property that was taken? Was there a specific MO involved in this? Sometimes we'll see crime series, and we're lucky in that we haven't seen a significant crime series in a while, but sometimes we'll see an individual who is breaking into the house in the same manner, taking the same type of property. Those are type cases that we're going to assign to an investigator. And also the availability and cooperation of the victim and witnesses. Oftentimes you'll get a victim, they'll come forward, they'll make the report, or a witness says, yeah, I know exactly what happened. And then as we begin to get into that investigation, both the victim and or the witness back off of that. So those are just a few of the criteria that we use in assigning cases to investigators. These represent our clearance rates for 2011, and clearance rates for us is very important for investigators. That's basically what we're judged by, the way that we judge ourselves also if we're doing an adequate job. Clearance rates mean, you know, are we clearing cases successfully? And there's big differences in the type of crimes that you see. National clearance rates for crimes against a person is about 47%. Clearance rates for crimes against a person for our detectives is at almost 64%. We're very proud of that. Clearance rates for property crimes, it's much more difficult, again, because we've got property tracking issues and things like that. But national clearance rates for property crimes is a little over 18%, and we're clearing a little over 24% of our crimes. We began a new CompStat program. We've had CompStat for several years. We kind of revamped the way that we were doing it, and we began that in February of 2011. We looked into a different type of mapping, and we found a crime density mapping program that was out there. It really illustrates what you're looking at, and for whatever reason, our officers really responded well to it. They see it there, it's in color, it's right in front of them, and it gives them a very good range of where certain crimes are happening. What you'll see in the density hotspots are related crime trends. We focus on specific crimes, not just everything that's out there, but very specific crimes. Jeff mentioned broken windows type policing, and we do subscribe to that. We focus on those crimes that we think are real quality of life issues. And when you see the maps, you'll understand that. We look at residential burglaries, larcenies, drug offenses, and we found that all of those crimes are basically committed within the same areas. Auto braking are another type of crime that we do focus on, although those are spread out a good bit more. This is an example of a residential burglary map. This was the very first one that we did, February the 17th, 2011. If you look at the upper right-hand corner of that map, you'll see a pink area and dark blue, and you see those colors throughout the map. Those represent the areas where we're having the most activities. It doesn't necessarily represent a crime epidemic or a crime series or spree. It just represents the areas where you're seeing the most of these. You've got a pink area there in that right-hand corner. That was in the Sunnyside area. You've got a pink area, a pretty substantial pink area down in the lower left corner. That's the Greer Mill area. To the right of that, you'll see that's area 4. That area in this map in general for the next 2 months and maybe 3 months after that actually became worse. And it's going to change from time to time, but again, it reminds us where we need to direct our folks. The crime density area up there in area 2 got worse. Area 3 around Greer Mill got worse, and then the area that is mainly blue right now turned a pretty glowing pink for the next 2 or 3 months. We have 3 approaches to our response, and the idea is to determine why certain crimes are happening in certain areas and then develop a response to that. Our 3 different responses are enforcement, obviously. We increase our proactive enforcement in those areas. We identify specific problem locations and people. We've also come at it from an environmental approach. We've had lighting projects done in certain areas to make the lighting better at nighttime. And we also get into something called target hardening. Sergeant Richardson spends a lot of time working with property owners, giving them tips on how they can make their property safer, so that if they have been victimized, that hopefully it won't be so easy to be victimized again. And we do see that. Sometimes targets are hit 2 and 3 times. We also take it from a community standpoint. We hold a lot of community meetings. Sergeant Richardson does a great job of that. We want people in the community to know that they're going to see us more often. They're going to see us being more proactive. And we want them to understand the type of problems that we've identified. And we want their help also in looking for solutions to these problems. We've had a good bit of response at our community meetings. Again, also we do a lot with property owners. Again, getting them involved. We work with landlords a good deal. We do solicit their help if we're having issues with specific people and property that they own. We do look for their help, and we have had some success with that. It's kind of an either or right now, but we are seeing success. They're either very cooperative or not at all, but we're still reaching out to those folks and building some bridges there. We also generated a Greer Police Department Facebook page, and we put information about arrests, we put information about wanted people on that Facebook page, and it's been pretty successful for us as well. If you remember the first map and what I talked about, we had increases in certain areas following that first map. And if you look at this one, this is a year's worth of data from February the 17th, which was our very first one, up to February 6th of this year. That glowing pink area that was in Area 2, and again, this is a residential burglary map, we saw a pretty significant decrease. That pink began to go away. Those are our most intense areas, and that means that we're lowering the number of events that are happening in that area. Down in Area 4, which at one point stretched much farther south in the darker blues and the pinks, saw a significant reduction. We spent a lot of time in Areas 2 and 4, and it began to pay off as the year progressed. Area 3 was one, it was kind of the slowest to come around, particularly in the Greer Mill area for whatever reason. But again, that density area has been reduced as well. So we're very proud of our efforts there. We've seen reductions in all of those areas, and we've seen reductions. The auto breakings fluctuate a good bit, but the drug activity, the residential burglaries and the larcenies, we've all seen successes in all of those. This is an example of new software that we put into place in 2011. Lisa Golden, our crime analyst, manages this. This was an auto breaking series that was taking place in the Suba Road area out near Riverside High School. And what we determined was that we had an individual or individuals that was working in that area. For whatever reason, they were targeting Ford trucks, and they were punching the locks on Ford trucks, getting in and then stealing whatever items that they found available to them in there. This software, you plug that information into the software. You also plug the dates and times into the software, and it creates an analysis for you. We found that our most prevalent days for this series was Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We saw spikes in times very early in the morning, around 7 o'clock in the morning, and then we saw spikes in times again in the evening between 8 o'clock and 11 o'clock into that area. So with this information in mind, we knew that these persons were targeting specific vehicles in a specific area, and then again at specific times. We put this information out, and this information went along with it. And what you see here is a map of the occurrence of the incidents as they were taking place. And there's also an analysis. What you see there highlighted in yellow was the next probable date of occurrence. So again, with all of this information in mind, we put folks in that area, and we did not make an arrest, but we stopped the criminal activity. Almost immediately after we put this out and began focusing in the area, these type of auto breaking stopped, and they haven't come back. We've had one incident that happened about 4 months, I think, after that, and then that was it. So always we like to make a charge, we like to make an arrest, but the next best thing that we will take is for it to stop, and it did. Vice investigations falls under the criminal investigations, and Vice, usually when we think of Vice, we think of narcotics. They do handle several different types of events. We made 67 narcotics cases in 2011. We made 42 cases involving prostitution, and that was not only seeking the prostitutes, we had some success with that, but for the gentlemen that frequent those prostitutes. We made 21 alcohol sale violation cases. We made 2 gambling cases, and we assisted in 14 operations with agencies that are outside of our jurisdiction. That includes the State Law Enforcement Division, ATF, Spartanburg County, and Greenville County. We've also done some work with Greenville City and the City of Fountain Inn. So we like to build relationships with with these outside agencies, and Corporal Ayler and Detective Upling have done a great job with that. This is an example. We've got money here in marijuana, just some pictures of, there's some scales back there as well, of some of the fruits of the labor that they had throughout 2011. Again, like I said, you know, we're judged by our clearance rates, and it's very important for us to keep those up. So our goal for 2012 is to improve our clearance rates through increased efficiency, and we have several objectives in place to hopefully get us to that goal. One, we've already done. We've added a 4th general detective. Excuse me. 2, we're looking into video enhancement capabilities, and what that is we get videos from many different sources. We get them from stores, and they show criminal activity, you know, everywhere. Everybody has cameras these days. We even have private citizens that have cameras. So we get videos from several different places. Some are very good quality, some are very poor quality. And those that are poor quality, we usually have to take to Spartanburg County. They have video enhancement capabilities there. The issue with that is that it takes time for us to secure an appointment with somebody over there. They have to take time out of their schedule to do it. They have to make the time. Then we have to go back and pick it up. It really slows down the process. That's something that we're going to look at this year. Computer upgrades, streamlining, crime analysis is one. We sometimes have to duplicate data entry processes in that. Property crimes investigations training, we can always use that. Interview and interrogation training. A lot of time as investigators, we earn our money at the interview stage, and so that's something that we're always looking to improve on. One thing that we also want to do is we do a lot of drug search warrants. There are lots of things that go along with drugs. There's burglaries that go along with drugs, stolen property. So we're going to assign a property crimes investigator to tag along on these drug search warrants, so that we're not just focused on finding the drugs, but we also want to find any stolen property that's in the house or wherever that location may be. So, with all of that, I will turn it over to Matt Hamby, who has our operational support division.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The operational support division consists of the detention section, the communications section, animal control, property and evidence, and records and data entry section. The telecommunications section is responsible for answering emergency 911 calls as well as non-emergency incoming telephone calls, radio communication to the police and fire units, and also the computerized monitoring of the police and fire activity. Currently, the telecommunications section consists of 7 dispatchers plus 1 dispatch supervisor. Their duties involve dispatching all police and also Greer Fire Department first responder units. On occasion, they have to get involved with dispatching or transferring calls from Pelham Batesville Fire Department, Lake Cunningham Fire Department, and Tiger River Fire Department. Additionally, they'll frequently have to transfer medical calls to Greenville or Spartanburg County EMS. During 2011, there was a 6% increase in dispatch calls for service as compared to 2010. Additionally, there was a 13.5% reduction of non-emergency incoming calls, a 3.5% reduction of 911 calls as well. Also, I would like to add on telecommunications, the receiving telephone call total for 2011 was over 87,000 telephone calls. The detention section is responsible for the intake, detainment, and release of people that are charged with crimes in the city of Greer. The city of Greer's detention facility is described as a Type 1 facility by the Department of Corrections, which is approved to house male inmates for a maximum of 48 hours. If they have to be detained more than 48 hours, we'll transfer the prisoner to either Spartanburg or Greenville County Detention. During 2011, the detention section saw a lot of activity. The increase of work showed in the nearly 2,400 persons that were processed into the facility, and that was a 32% increase, very significant increase over the prior year. When I say processed, what I'm referring to is a person who's under arrest is brought into the facility. That involves a thorough search of the defendant, as well as inventorying his personal property, conducting a medical screen, and on certain occasions we'll have to photograph or fingerprint the person. Currently, the detention section consists of 4 detention officers plus a sergeant supervisor. The sergeant supervises the daily operations of the jail. As you can see on that chart, towards the upper right, there's the 32% increase in the number of inmates that were processed into the jail. I'll direct your attention to the bottom line, the hours covered by patrol. Just a quick explanation. The detention section we have 4 detention officers that have to cover 4 shifts. So obviously there will be times when days off, vacation, training, other reasons that they can't be present. So we have to use the assistance of the Uniform Patrol Division to put someone down in that position. The records section is responsible for the entry, maintenance, and dissemination of various types of police documents in accordance with state laws and police policies. In 2011, there was an increase in the number of incident reports, as well as a 6.5% in the collision reports that were processed, and there was a very significant increase in the amount of warning tickets that were processed and entered. All the warning tickets are entered into a statewide database that everybody can view on the Department of Public Safety's website. That's a 73% increase. The animal control section consists of 1 animal control officer. His duties are to enforce compliance of animal laws and ordinances in the city of Greer. Additionally, he's tasked with the care of the animals at the city's kennel facility. During 2011, he answered over 1,300 calls for service. During that time, he picked up 281 animals, and his primary goal was to find the owner and return those animals to the owner. However, not all of those qualified for that, so we have to take them to either the Spartanburg Humane Society or Greenville County Animal Care Services. Also, I'd just like to note that the Animal Control Officer was the recipient of the 2011 Civilian Employee of the Year Award, so he's done a fine job for us. The property evidence section consists of 1 officer who's responsible for the intake, tracking, transportation of, and disposition of all property evidence that is seized by Greer police officers. During 2011, we significantly got in place our new barcode and RFID tracking system. What that is it's a way to track evidence as it's brought into the intake process. And anytime it transfers custody from one person to another, or is taken to court, or is delivered to a crime lab, either in Greenville County, Spartanburg County, or down at SLED, all that information is updated just by scanning the item's barcode. We are stepping that up even further with an RFID tracking component. We already have RFID tags on many of our items, especially all of the drugs, money, and guns that we store. As far as I'm aware, there is no other agency in South Carolina that's using an RFID process for tracking evidence, so I think we're kind of ahead of the game in that aspect. We did a lot of purging of older evidence during 2011. This is a very lengthy and time-consuming process. You have to go through and confirm all the cases are cycled through the court and everything's okay to either destroy, auction, or otherwise dispose of the item. During that time, we used our incinerator drug burner that we have to destroy old drug evidence, and we used that on 3 different occasions and made a lot of progress during 2011.
During the year, we hired a total of 6 officers. I've got 5 up there. We hired 1 that left us in about May, and he came back in August. Chuck Cunningham, I did put his picture in there. So we hired a total of 6 officers, 2 detention officers, and 1 dispatcher. At the beginning of the year, that was our status there that you see, 53 filled. We recently had one officer resign, and we also have had a dispatcher that is going to be leaving us, I believe Friday, to take a position in the court. So we're going to try to fill that position along with Dan Hendricks retiring the dispatch supervisor position. Our awards banquet was held in January, and some of the winners were Supervisor of the Year was Sergeant Jeff Smith. Officer of the Year was Detective Maria Brewer. Rookie of the Year was Officer Jamie Smith, and Civilian of the Year was Scott Ruckers. One of the things that the administrative section does is put on the Greer Police Citizens Academy. We are actually getting ready to start one Thursday, so you still have time to put applications in if you want to come. We've got 20 people signed up for this one coming up this Thursday. But last year we held 2 classes and had a total of about 30 people in both those classes. It was very successful. In January of last year, we started the Greer Police Citizens Academy Alumni Association. And what that consists of is people that have completed the Citizens Academy, and they're able to come back. Last year we did it 4 times a year. We did it quarterly, and we've changed that to doing it once every other month now, where we're going to meet. And they're able to come back and get some extra training. And also through that, we've been able to get several volunteers that now come in and help us at the front desk, help us with our records, help us in dispatch, so and evidence. They've helped us in that. So it's really been beneficial for us and also for the citizens out there to have a point of contact when they have an issue in their area. Next, I'd like to introduce Sergeant Chad Richardson. He's the Community Outreach Sergeant, and he'll explain his section.
Evening, Mayor and Council. How are you doing this evening? Just go over real quick what we do in the Community Outreach Division. Do all kinds of different things, but just a few. I work with the Planning Advisory Committee. We work with new projects that are coming into the city as well as items that are already here. I work with the security planning for items such as Family Fest, Oktoberfest, the Greer Relief Barbecue Festival. This fall, the Needmore community had a fall festival, and I assisted them with that. Some of the traditional things when you think of a community outreach division, we still do the tours to the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, and we still have a lot of young folks who like to come and shadow law enforcement on shadowing days, and we still provide those services as well. I also work on the Greer Junior Leadership Board to help plan events and activities for the youth. I knew I was going to be that guy. Sorry. I knew I was going to be that guy. One of the other things that I have the opportunity to do is I'm over the school resource officers, and we have probably one of the finest group of school resource officers anywhere in the state. I'd put them against anybody any day of the week. My guys, they, in addition to the task of working with the children in the schools and all the things that they do there, they also in the summer do a good job of security in the downtown area and the parks. They help me with some of my presentations that I give to the community, and they also do Cops or Tots. One thing that deals kind of with the strategic plan and has been in the news lately is the Neighborhood Watch programs. Communities are reporting that these are going up everywhere, and the numbers are starting to increase. These are just a list of some of the new additions that we've had this past year. Each year we add about 5 or 6 onto the list, and the ones that we have already in place are very active, and they actually provide a wealth of information to me. One of the themes as we go through the presentations that you see is we all work hand in hand with everybody in the department and within other city departments. So when I get information, it helps me to pass it on so we can get problems solved for the citizens. National Night Out. This year, the number of National Night Out participants, it went up, and that's a direct reflection of the number of neighborhood watch groups that have went up. As those groups continue to expand, they get excited about the program, and more of them want to hold their own National Night Out program. This year, we have one at Reynolds Square, the Trade Street neighborhood, and Oakland Place Apartments. The rental letter program, one of the things that was in the strategic plan was the adopting the crime-free housing policy. And it's a system of trying to work with landlords and property managers, because that's where the police spend a lot of their time, is at rental properties, and they spend a lot where property is managed, such as complexes and things of that nature. The problem that you find is that landlords and the managers are only there either 8 to 5, and they don't have a great deal of information about what happens when they're not there. And landlords, a lot of times, they don't really know that problems are going on. So one of the things that I do is I have the opportunity to look through the police reports, and when we identify a property as a rental place that is a problem, or we keep having to go to the same apartment, we work with the managers or the landlords, and they, as stated earlier, we have some that work with us very well and some that don't participate as well. But that is growing. It's a growing program, and it's really doing really well.
Jack, can I ask a quick question? What is it that, what can we do to help you there to get these guys on the same page with us if you're saying they're not participating?
Well, you know, it's just one of those things that just encourage them. You know, I try to encourage them by letting them know that a lot of times, not only is it a problem for us, but it's a problem for them, because chances are, if they're involved in criminal activity, they're probably not taking the best care of the property, and we try to use alternate resources as well as looking at maybe codes violations and things, other matters, when they're, you know, we're not getting participation. But for the most part, you know, it's kind of a voluntary program. I really don't know what else we can really do to lean on to do that. Maybe an ordinance. But if they don't, then, you know,
Then you go lock them up.
sure, that'll work. The Peace Summit, this was a situation where we had some unfortunate untimely deaths in the community, and there were some people in the community who came forth, and Councilman Griffin, Parks and Rec, Public Services, and all of us worked together with some churches and some different groups, and we had a day. A lot of people in the community came out. There was lots of activities for kids. They gave away groceries. You know, it's just a chance to bring everybody in the community, to try to bring the community together and stop some of the stuff that was going on as far as violent acts and things such as that. Another program that we work on is we work closely with the downtown corridor, and one of the things that we do is we try to provide, not just to the downtown corridor, but any establishment that we have in the city that sells alcohol. The Phoenix Center offers a class that's called PREP, the Palmetto Retailers Education Program. It basically teaches them the laws about underage alcohol sales. It also goes into a great deal of knowledge about the festivals and stuff. We get a great turnout for that, and that's something that we are going to continue to offer every year, because, you know, we're lucky enough every year we see a new business that pops up, and we always want to be able to refresh those folks on those types of crimes and stuff. Operation Medicine Cabinet, this kind of goes with the strategic plan of the drugs, our focus. You know, we had 2 events last year. We got about 250 pounds of prescription medicine. One of the programs that we held, I think it was in the spring of last year, we actually were the top. We beat all the counties in the state. We actually had more participation than a lot of the counties did as far as the amount that was able to be turned in. It's a great program that keeps prescription medicine out of the hands of teens and young folks. It also keeps it from being flushed and ending up in the water. And it's been successful. We're going to try and start holding those bi-monthly instead of twice a year and increase the amount that we get in. Another thing that I work on is the community service worker program, where they're sentenced to community service in the courts. Once they're given to me, I try and find different activities for them, whether it be work within the city, sometimes with Greer Relief. Last year was the first year. I had about 65 people who were sentenced and about 3,000 hours, and the average sentence is 48 hours. Most of the people finished their sentence. We had a few that refused to cooperate, but that's a very small number, and it's very beneficial when we have programs in downtown, like all the festivals and things we have in the summertime. They're an extra hand to help get things cleaned up. At this time, I'd like to introduce Sergeant Ballinger of the Training Division.
Mayor, Council, Sergeant Ballinger with the Training Division. You can see some of the classes that we hold for our officers there at our facility. Some of the other things that we've done in this past year, as reflected by the graph on the right there, we continue to recruit and host training events here at our facilities. We're quickly becoming the upstate hub for training. Scalia and other agencies are using us. Last year we held 49 classes for the year. That's a total of 1,234 students trained. That's not just our students. We had officers from North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia attend training in our facility for a total of 14,066 training hours. On the left are some of the training events that we had. These are ones that we conducted, again, for not only our officers, but for other officers. On the right is safety training events that we conducted along with the Municipal Association guidelines for our officers and for city employees. One of the things that was the goal for last year was the implementation of patrol rifles. That was a brand new piece of equipment that we had never had before. On the left is kind of a timeline of when we got them, some of the things that we had to do. We made that happen fairly quickly, and I'd like to report as of November 2011, the patrol rifles are in the vehicles and on the roads. Sydney, this is a joint effort between the Greer Police Department, Duncan, and Lyman. We bought this cart, which you'll hear more about later. Myself and Sergeant Richardson went to the training course. We hosted it here in Greer. We had instructors come in from Duncan and Lyman and participate with us. We've used it in Greenville and Spartanburg counties. Right now, there's been over 800 students. This slide's a little bit dated. There's more students been trained since we put this together. With requests coming in every day, we received one today from J.L. Mann. They want us to bring it down there and use it in their school program. So we continue to get a lot of requests for this cart, and it's a great tool to train the students, not only on, most people think impaired driving and think about alcohol, but there's also a course that you can use where they're texting, and you see the girl there, she's texting and driving, and it allows us to control the vehicle and show them some of the dangerous effects of texting and driving. On the right, you can see some of the current host agreements that we have out there. There's some pretty colorful names, the 420 group. HIDA is the Highway Interdiction Training Academy. One of the things that you heard at the conclusion tonight is the hand in hand. These are groups that we go out right now. Narcotics has been a theme of the night. We have 13 officers that are in a class this week in Duncan. It's a narcotics interdiction class. We have 13 people in it. We set the class up. We're co-hosting it with 2 other agencies to get that training here for our officers. One of the things Lieutenant Presley mentioned was he'd like to have more interview and interrogation training. We went out, we've secured that training, it'll be here in April. And with doing that, we get free training out of it by hosting it. We get free slots. For instance, a taser class, that's $500 a slot. We get 3 slots for having it here. So we save the money up front, and we have officers from other agencies that come here, they stay here in our city, they spend their money here. Ms. Cunningham did a study for us on a 4-day class that we held here at City Hall in August. And just out of that 4-day class, it was found to have a $14,000 economic impact for our city. So we're going to continue to reach out and host training and get those agencies in here. Pending any questions, I'll be followed by Chief Reynolds.
That concludes my staff's presentation. You can see very talented, very skilled. Let me tell you, we have a lot to do, and we do a lot. But keep coordinated. We work with every department here. We work with businesses, chamber, Greer Relief, the missions, several businesses around town that we support and work with on all our projects. Again, policing is a partnership. It's a motto on our cars. I guess this is a slide I wanted. Just to let you know, the culmination of most of our efforts for this year have actually resulted. These are preliminary figures. The figures come out from the FBI around October. This is very close to what they are. When we compared our estimates with theirs, it's about 1% off or less. I mean, there's not going to be much difference. There will be a reduction of 11 or 7% reduction in property crimes and a 32% reduction in violent crimes over the past year. I can't necessarily say it's due to the efforts of some of our special programs, but it's hard for me to believe that we establish certain programs and then we get a reduction on it. The city of Greer has and I've had a lot of experience with this in other cities and countries, has a very stable crime rate. It goes up, it goes down, but it doesn't go up and go down very much. Now, that's a good thing, okay? There's a lot of stability. There's a very low violent crime rate, so every time you get fluctuation, it goes a little higher, but not as high as you might expect. So I think we live in a very safe community when you compare it to some of the other cities, counties in our area. And you don't read a lot about Greer, except they put Greer in the paper and it's not Greer on some of the incidents you hear about. These are some of our objectives, or actually our initiatives that we plan for next year and some continuing from last year. Again, when you see the highlighted yellow on the reports, when you get them tomorrow, sometimes I'll highlight the major topic at the top. That means everything under that topic in yellow applies to the strategic plan. If you have any question about how it applies, or what area of the plan is, just call me in and I'll let you know what you need to know. We want to complete the range upgrade. We're almost finished with that. We have all we have to do is grading and some paths that we want to mark out, and then we can put our barricades up, our bullet barricades that we purchased here last year. We want to kind of review the community policing self-assessment results and the customer service results and see what we can do to improve our operations. We volunteered this year to take a DOJ, or the community policing survey that was offered by the Fed to see how we're doing in terms of implementing community policing problem solving in our organization. I asked a lot of questions. We had to send out surveys to community members, business members, staff, and other individuals to find out how they felt we were doing in terms of community policing, several different questions. This is in addition to the customer survey. Evidently, we did pretty well. I think the top score is 5, and we were about average of 4 on everything we did. We still have room for improvement. One of the obvious things in the survey was our people didn't know how much we were involved with and who we were involved with. So we have to do a better job of marketing internally with our employees. We'll continue stressing good to great, and again on to exceeding expectations. Both of them are very compatible. Continued in-car reporting system improvements. Again, try to get where the officers can work out of their cars, stay on the street, and not have to come in to make reports. Focus on identified high crime areas, again, major enforcement efforts on drugs and prostitution. What we are finding now is, and in the last homicide we have, prostitution and homicide and drugs are all somehow interrelated. So we want to focus on those things and try to reduce the potential problem that we have with not only homicides, but aggravated assaults and other violent crimes that occur in this community. Although few, we really feel like we can make a major difference if we focus on these areas. Now, for some reason, here recently, we've been finding a lot of meth, and that's also the trend in the country. Meth is now the drug of choice. It's cheaper, it's easier to produce, and we're finding a lot of younger people, high school students, for example, in our community, that are producing this stuff in the presence of their parents, who are not very knowledgeable of what it smells like or what it looks like, apparently. And especially in one recent case we had in a very nice neighborhood in our community. We want to complete barcoding and property and evidence RFID implementation in the property room and provide an update comp and pop training program for supervisors and officers. Years ago, Chief Chris got the department moving towards community policing and problem solving, and they did very well. It got to a point where they were functioning well. But over the years, we've had new employees. The older employees, more experienced employees, have probably forgot some of the principles of both of these strategies, and we need to re-emphasize that. I can bring in some people that I'm familiar with and experts from outside, plus us, myself and Lieutenant Presley, who are going to reorient everybody and reteach what these concepts are. Again, we have the community policing survey that will help us to gel up or help us fix some of the areas where we may be a little bit weak in that. Last but not least, it's not breakfast time. We have one major achievement this year that we just found out about today. The city of Greer and the Greer Police Department applied for the MASC Achievement Awards this year in public safety, and we won the Public Safety Achievement Award this year for our underage drinking and driving campaigns that involve Sydney, the driving device, Alive at 25, and our auditing program for underage drinking. So I think that speaks well to the department and some of the things that we're doing out there. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Chief.
If you have any questions later on, fine.
Thank you, Chief, and staff. Great presentation. As I mentioned before, we don't realize what our departments do, and it is eye-opening in many regards to see the level of activity and intervention that our police department does. As citizens of the city, we have a high level of expectation in the city of Greer, and our police department accomplishes that. And as you can see, it is not without a great deal of effort on their part. And some of the changes that you have seen made and referenced tonight are the results of a police department that is dedicated to providing a high quality of life in this city, and our hats are off to the men and women of the police department, and thank you for not only the presentation but the work that you do and the efforts that you provide in making this truly a great community in which to live and work and play. Thank you very much for your presentation this evening and the work that you do. Thank you.